Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to We Won, Let's Eat, the Jewish food podcast. We're talking about Shabbat and all the foods and traditions that make it work. I am Lonnie Goldsmith of TC Jew Folk, and I'm joined by my co-hosts from Fancy Dinner Club, once again, Matt Erickson and Bradley Maychov.
Hello.
Sorry, busy eating some challah. Hold on.
Speaking of traditions of Shabbat, we are eating challah here in the studio as we record. Special thanks to Honey and Rye Bakery for sponsoring this episode and giving us one of their delicious loaves of challah. And it is delicious.
It hits all the right spots for what I want challah to be.
So what do you want challah to be? Let's start there. Because, challah is the star of Shabbat, right?
I think challah is the one constant for Shabbat for me, right? Yeah. It's the easy thing. You can always pick something up and have with Shabbat. Everything else kind of changes based on circumstance, but there's always a challah. Whether it came out of the freezer or I picked it up at the bakery that day. I don't know. The perfect challah, it has to have a good crust on the outside. It's got to be that golden brown. And inside, I wanted to strike the right balance between doughy and flaky. When you get those ones that are too doughy, it's kind of underbaked. And the ones that are crumbly, I don't even want to eat them. So when I get the challah from Honey and Rye, which I do relatively frequently, it's definitely in the rotation. I always know what I'm getting, and it's always good.
The one thing I find really interesting about this challah is that it has the perfect egg wash on it.
Yeah.
It has that sort of sheen to it. I've had some that, I'm not going to say where, but I've had some that haven't been egg washed, and we eat with our eyes first.
They look kind of sickly.
It's sad.
Yeah, this challah in our studio right now looks beautiful. And tastes good, too.
What's left of it, because it's going fast.
Yeah.
Now, Lonnie, you're the one that bakes them at home.
Yes.
Are there any secrets you care to share with our listeners?
So I will share the link. Wrote an article about why this challah is the challah that I make is great. I have a very high opinion of my challah. I tried a version of the recipe to enter in the state fair once. Did not win, but it was really fun to see my challah in display in the honey and bee section. That was a really cool thing. But to me, it's always been something fun I can do with my kids. Mm-hmm. If I time it right, even if they're at school, I cheat a little bit and use a bread maker to get to do the dough. Mm-hmm. But then they can help with the braiding if it all times out right. They can braid it and they can help, brush it with the oil and then brush it with the egg wash when it's ready to go in the oven. And so for me, it's always sort of a family. It can be a family activity, and the kids get into it. They tend to overuse the flour a little bit at times.
That's the fun part.
Well, except I'm the one who cleans up, not them. Who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? Yeah. My wife is the one who ends up cleaning up because I can never do it well enough.
Probably a smart clarification there.
Yeah, no, shout out to my wife. But yeah, any tips, we had talked about this, and I think what makes this, the challah from Honey and Rye stand out is that it has honey in the dough. It's, as they make the dough, they use honey in the recipe, and not everybody does that. I know the one that I make has both sugar and honey in it. The caveat with the state fair one I made, it was the honey and bee competition, so it could have no sugar in it. Honey was the only sweetener, which required a lot of recipes and a lot of playing with the amounts just to see what was going to work. And baking is science. Mm-hmm. You can freelance, on the chicken for your Shabbat dinner. You could, see what spices you have in the pantry or stuff you have in the garden to make with it, and you can make it work. But you can't with the challah. You do have to sort of follow something, to make it work. But no, I think having the honey in it really does make a lot of difference. Just having sort of not I don't care whether it's a natural sweetener or not. I'm not like a health food person or anything, but I think it just tastes better.
Did either of you ever have the It Takes the Cake challah?
Oh yes.
That to me,
legendary.
That to me is the perfect challah.
Legendary.
It's I don't know what to do with my life now that it's no longer here, because I heard a rumor that someone else is baking it.
Yes. We'll get into that story. That's a whole other
All right.
rabbit hole to go down. I think, I mean, it takes the cake closed when the owners just decided they wanted to stop doing it. And there was a process, and I think you could taste it in the challah, at least to me, over a certain period of time where it was clear that they didn't want to do it anymore. And at least in our house, it tasted different.
It did.
Like the quality sort of came off
even then
a
at
cliff.
80% was much better than pretty much anything else that I was going to eat
And I think
anywhere else.
at that point is when I started ramping up my challah making. So what comes out of the amount of dough that comes out of the bread maker for us, we make 3 challot, 2 go in the freezer quickly. Otherwise, they get, after baking, we bake all together and then 2 go in the freezer. Otherwise, they don't last to go to the freezer.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
Do you guys have any feelings about when people call it challah bread?
I don't hear it very often, but I got mad just hearing it now out of your mouth.
I've seen it on menus before. Like
There-
French toast with challah bread.
Do they go to the ATM machine also?
I don't know. Probably. But there's just something that hurts my soul about it, right?
Part of me died just not hearing that.
I'm angry at you now. Put that out there.
But I think it's true of a lot of stuff. I mean, I've heard pita bread. I've heard naan bread.
That's
I mean,
true.
it just sort of...
Is it okay, so all 3 of those that you mentioned are sort of vaguely ethnic breads in a way. Do you think it's because people don't, like, they need it literally spelled out for them what those things are?
Maybe.
America.
I think it...
Hashtag America.
But
More or less.
in a sense, you could also say, like, you hear sourdough bread,
Yeah.
which you don't necessarily need the bread after it. And there's some other varieties of more American bread, I'm sure, that probably don't need the bread after it, that we say. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a common thing for more ethnic, exotic kind of breads.
So I hear pita bread all the time. Like that
do
almost
I.
seems like the norm. Non bread feels weird too, just like challah bread.
Yeah.
But now you got me thinking.
But again, and I wonder if it, like, the example you used was French toast with challah bread. But if it was with a white bread, I wouldn't say, it would say white bread. I wouldn't say like French toast,
Yes.
like with white.
Yeah, of course. Like there are...
But it would just say French toast. I don't.
It
think
would-
they
that's true. It would
I don't
just
think
say
they would
French toast.
French toast with white bread. They would just say
No.
French toast. Like they'll say brioche French toast. They don't say brioche bread French toast.
That's true. That's true.
Whoever's doing that is doing it wrong.
Very.
And they should call us and we can explain it to them.
We would like them to stop.
Yeah.
I've heard it more times than I would like to.
Me
I mean,
too.
once is enough.
Yeah.
But
You should just stop going to those places because clearly they don't value you.
well, clearly I don't remember where I heard it, so...
So you haven't been back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if I've glazed over it. I've seen it and then just
You
stopped
probably
thinking
have.
about it. I'm sure I
I
have.
feel like it's common
sure I
enough.
have.
I don't know.
Now I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go look for it at places.
You're welcome.
I hate you.
Okay, we need to. Challah is delicious. Don't call it challah bread. End of story.
Yes.
Let's talk about other things about Shabbat.
This episode is sponsored by Honey and Rye. Honey and Rye is owned by Minnesota native Ann Andrews. She's a business owner, she's a mom, and she has a passion for baking, family, and community, which has inspired her journey. With a focus on local and sustainable sourcing, their artisan breads and pastries are always baked fresh in-house, and coffee is locally roasted. They've been open on Excelsior Avenue since 2013, growing from a staff of 5 to now 25, and a second location in the Gray's Food Hall in the North Loop. The challah is dairy-free, and the pastries are the best kind, butter-forward. For more information, check out honey-and-rye.com.
Do you have any other foods, like traditional family foods that you eat on Shabbat?
No. I mean, our most recent Shabbat, we had matzo ball soup, which, I mean, again, is traditional, but found a recipe to make it in the Instapot, so you pressure cook it, and
Nice.
it's good. It just extracts a lot of flavor, and I don't have to sit over a stove all day, sort of checking and seasoning and, doing all the what goes into a normal pot of soup. But otherwise, I mean, sometimes we'll do some sort of, we don't ever really, rarely do like a whole roast chicken. We'll do some sort of variation on that. But I mean, a lot of times we'll do steak.
It really depends what's going on. I mean, more often than not, we'll just pick up a rotisserie chicken and then figure out some kind of sides and a salad and call it good. Quick, easy.
Done that.
Life with a toddler who's in bed by 7. Like, we don't have time to come home and cook for an hour and a half.
Done that plenty of times.
Yeah, but I mean, this past Friday, we just did salami and eggs.
Sounds great.
That sounds awesome.
It's kind of my Zadie could only cook like 3 things. You can cook salami and eggs, baked beans and hot dogs, and cream of wheat. Could not make anything else for the life of him. So
it's a fascinating trio.
Easy things, right?
They are.
So you pick up the kosher salami, you scramble some eggs, and you throw it all in after you sear the salami. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's easy. Not really a Shabbat food, but it means
very,
a lot to it's a very specific thing for our family.
But it's a very Jewish food.
Yeah, it's a very Jewish food, and we all associate it with him and with all the stuff going on in Duluth and all those things. We just wanted to do something that meant something to us rather than a rotisserie chicken this week. But other than always having a challah and lighting candles, the food changes. The nice part of it is Shabbat's changed for us over the years too. Once we had a kid, we started trying to do it more regularly, and it kind of took on a more of a routine thing. But over the years, it's been different groups of friends, different programs that have offered up subsidies to help you like do food and recipes and different things. And just, it's always been a different touch point, but it's kind of come and gone. But it's a much more permanent thing now once we started our own family.
As my mom and her dad, my grandpa, used to say, have said many times, you make your own Shabbat. I love that phrase. It's so applicable and relevant to pretty much anything, but it's especially it's relevant to Shabbat. Everyone has their own traditions. Everyone does things differently, and you just make it what you want and whatever's meaningful to you.
I mean, I feel like that's sort of, modern, I would say, Judaism in a nutshell, right?
In a lot of ways.
It's, there are certain sort of, like for you, the candles get lit and the challah gets eaten and what goes along with it.
Doesn't matter. Everybody stops, comes together for a couple minutes, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of the way it should be. You make your own traditions as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about Shabbat is it's an easy touch point that doesn't require a ton of time or effort, but it's a constant.
And I think because it happens week in and week out, every week without fail, it is a lot more open to whatever it is that makes it meaningful for you. Something that happens once a year, like Rosh Hashanah or Passover or whatever.
Were you going to say
Purim?
Purim?
They're the same.
The most important of holidays.
Yeah. But like anything that happens once a year, it's a little harder to change it up sometimes because you only have this one chance. Whereas Shabbat, it's just, you have a busy week sometimes. You maybe not as busy of a week. You have different time you can spend on it. And so it adapts to whatever it is that week that's going to be meaningful for you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's sort of, as we've talked about in previous episodes with Rosh Hashanah, with the foods that we like to eat at Rosh Hashanah and Jewish holidays in general, we didn't really talk about sort of the Shabbat foods. We talked about the one-off sort of holidays, the annual holidays, and the things that will get made no matter what. And that's because they're once. And you don't mess with tradition in that way. And Shabbat, it's like you said, it's an easy touch point for a couple of minutes of blessings, and you sit and you eat and then go on with your thing, the rest of your thing. And you get to, if you're doing Shabbat right, you can sort of relax and reset a little bit and focus in for the week to come. Not always the easiest thing to do, but
not at all.
But some plenty of times one day rolls into the next before you realize what day it is. But there's Shabbat done well should be sort of at least a brief time to come together and eat some delicious challah and whatever else you want to serve with it, because that's challah is the best part of Shabbat.
And then you have leftover challah to make French toast in the morning.
Unfortunately,
not challah bread French toast, but challah French toast.
See, you got one small child, so you're lucky. You don't go through that much. I got two older kids. We never have enough left unless we, portion it out before.
My mom always used to buy two.
Yeah.
One that was sliced and one that wasn't.
See, there's one
sliced. Okay, that's a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. Do you slice it or you tear it? We always tear it.
Oh, it's a tear.
It's never slicing
on
until
Shabbat,
on
Shabbat itself, you tear it.
Okay, so
the
you're
sliced
using
one
it
is for leftovers.
For the French
Perfect.
toast.
For the French toast.
Your mom made her own Shabbat.
She's a genius.
Yeah.
Shout out to Gail Machov.
She made her own Shabbat.
Sponsors.
Well, we've got one for this episode.
We do, and it's delicious.
And it is delicious. So thank you to our friends at Honey and Rye for sponsoring this episode. We will be back soon. I'm not going to tell you what the topic is. We're going to keep you on your toes, but check us out on Instagram at Fancy Dinner Club is where you can find Bradley and Matt. You can email them all your thoughts and complaints. Also,
or you could send them to TCG Folk. We would much appreciate that.
Complaints to podcast at
TCG only Folk. Compliments to Fancy Dinner Club.
Complaints to podcast at tcgfolk.com, and we will respond to you there thoughtfully.
We'll laugh at them on the show.
We might. However, if you do have questions that you want us to answer on the show, send them our way, because I think that would be a fun little segment to throw in.
That would be fun.
And, of course, check us out, subscribe, rate, review, wherever you find podcasts. Go find it. We Won Let's Eat, the Jewish food podcast, is a product of Jewfolk Inc. Email the show at podcast@tcjewfolk.com or find Fancy Dinner Club on Instagram at Fancy Dinner Club.